If you would, open your missalette to the first reading, page 44. Missalette, page 44. That first reading is just a good, simple overview of some of the qualities that all of you have. Because every one of you are saints of God by your baptism, saint with a small s. But all these are qualities I should have, every one of us should have. Second line there, share your bread with the hungry. Shelter the oppressed and the homeless. Do we think of these people? Bread and the hungry, shelter the oppressed and the homeless, clothe the naked. Then go down about 6 from the bottom. Remove from your midst oppression, false accusation, malicious speech, lying, gossip, stuff like that. And then it goes on to say, second line from the bottom, a light will rise. And that light is God. God's presence will come among us. But it takes our actions to do that. Simple thought this morning. This week and last week, we had two great saints who lived this reading well, helping the poor, speaking always, building people up, speaking the glory of God. First one was Saint Valentine, whose feast we celebrate this Friday. There's a little reason for mentioning this. One of the stories about Saint Valentine, he was a Catholic priest who truly loved his parish and his people. And he just reached out to them. And he brought to them the truths of Jesus Christ. And it really brought love into the whole community. But the government at that time did not like this Jesus Christ he was preaching about, or the teachings of Jesus Christ. And what did they do? They threw Father Valentine, in prison. And so this guy's in prison, and he still has this great love for God. And he's worried about his parishioners. So what did he start to do? He started to write what we call Saint Valentine notes, because he became a saint. He began to write notes in prison. Don't forget, don't get discouraged. Love Jesus, love one another. Share the truth of Christ. Continue to spread the message. And then he would take those little notes, he'd put them through the prison bars because his parishioners were outside the jail praying for him. And he would take these notes, give it to them. They would all gather around. They'd read that St. Valentine note. They'd get encouragement. They share the message with others. Okay? This guy lived this first reading. Second saint we celebrated this past week, the feast of St. Blaise. Blaise again lived this first reading. He helped the poor. He brought the message of Christ. And the government again threw him into prison. On his way to his death, to his martyrdom, Blaise saw a young person that had an ailment of the throat. I'm not sure what it was. But the bishop, he was a bishop, the bishop stopped, walked over to the young person, turned to God, prayed for the person, who was automatically healed. And it's from that, and then he went on to be put to death. He's a saint in heaven today. But through that simple praying for this young person, praying for whatever ailment it was of the throat, the tradition of having blessing of throats began. Again, I didn't study the history of where it came from, but since being a little child, I've always gotten my throat blessed on or around the Feast of St. Blaise. So this morning we're going to have the blessing of throats in honor of St. Blaise. If you are one of the helpers